Run. They told us all to run. Run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But whatever you do, don't stop. I'd been repeating it in my head like the Lord's Prayer, a broken record meant to keep my legs moving. It worked, right up until it didn't. Because I realized I wasn't moving, the alley around me sharpened into focus. The kid with the red eyes and the black tears was smiling at me like we were in on the same joke. I couldn't get air into my lungs. It wasn't that I forgot how to breathe, it was that every breath wanted to hold itself, like my body had suddenly decided stillness was easier. Move, I told my feet. Nothing. The boy's smile grew until it didn't look like a smile anymore. It looked like a rip. He didn't lunge. He didn't sprint. He took a tiny step, like he was testing the floorboards of a haunted house. He cocked his head, and those red, glassy eyes cut toward my shoes, measuring me for a coffin. The scream came again, wet, animal, delighted. I felt it in my teeth. I dropped. Not down to pray, down to crawl. Palms slapping gritty concrete, knees scraping open. I forced a shuffle, left, right, like a toddler learning stairs. That microscopic motion broke whatever spell had grabbed my nerves, and movement returned in a rush, the way blood returns to a sleeping limb. Pins and needles shot through my thighs. I crawled until I could walk. I walked until it turned into a ragged jog. I didn't look back. I made it out of the alley and into the brighter madness of the street. A crowd streamed past like a river that had decided the sidewalks were banks. Nobody was really running anymore. Running had burned out of us hours ago. Walking was the new sprint. Shuffling was the new marathon. Every crosswalk light might as well have been a headstone. I joined the river. Our 7 time had stopped, meaning minutes, and started meaning blocks. We made it 4 blocks. Felt like an accomplishment. 3 more blocks felt like a life sentence. I passed a guy pushing an office chair, one knee on the cushion, using the other foot like a scooter. I passed a woman rolling a desk chair with a sleeping toddler strapped to it, with belts and scarves. She nudged it forward with her hip in a steady rhythm. A pack of college kids power walked with jump ropes tied between them like daisy chains, so if one sagged, the others dragged him along, and everybody kept moving. An old man in a wheelchair pumped his hand rims with that stubborn, quiet fury you only see in people who have already buried everyone they ever loved. A dog paced beside him, pads bleeding, eyes panicked. A delivery truck crawled down the avenue at a snail's pace. 10 people jogged alongside, one hand on the bed to keep contact. A woman jogged while pouring cereal into her mouth from the box. Someone else peed while walking, tears on their face, shame overridden by survival. We were animals with bank accounts. A honking knot of cars clogged an intersection where a city bus sat jackknifed. The driver had tried to keep it looping the block, but one pickup had stalled, and then everything else had. People trapped in the bus pounded the windows until the bus rocked like a boat. They were moving, the bus wasn't. I kept my eyes on the ground and my feet under me. At the corner of Maple and 9th, a teenage boy tried to skateboard and crumpled when the board hit a pebble. His friends kept moving. They reached for him with fingers and didn't stop. Their faces looked like they were drowning. Hour 8. I learned a few rules, fast. Staircases are death. Escalators are religion. Elevators are a dare from God. You don't help someone unless you're already moving with them, because stopping to help is still stopping. You don't sit. You don't lean. You don't even fully finish a step. You keep your center of gravity falling. The world had turned into one permanent controlled fall. By the park, volunteers in neon vests, where did they find neon vests so fast, had set up an assembly line. They passed out duct tape, shoelaces, belts. They tied people together in pairs like three-legged races, except it was survival. If one leg failed, the other leg refused to let the body die. On a poster, someone had scrawled, "Pairs last longer." Under that, fuel stations every 6 blocks. Under that, no stop zones, red paint. A young woman with dark hair in a bun and a grocery cart full of bottled water shoved a roll of duct tape into my hands without breaking stride. "You alone?" she asked, not looking at me, scanning the crowd. "Yeah, you're gonna want to fix that." She glanced at my bleeding knees. "Come on." I didn't argue. We matched pace. She stuck out an elbow, and I hooked mine through it. We became a single, 4-legged animal. "I'm Mara," she said, breath hitching. "If you feel dizzy, say red." "Red?" "That's code for I'm about to faceplant and make us both dead." "Got it," I said. Name's later," she said, and then softened. "Sorry, later." We passed a shuttered gym with a hand-lettered sign in the window. "Cardio open. Keep moving. No stopping." Inside, every treadmill ran. The place looked like a moving beehive. People jogged in sandals and suits. Someone had wired treadmills to generators and their sweat-powered lights over a huge whiteboard with block letters. "If you have to sleep, harness, treadmill. 2 hours at a time. Safety clip. Do not trust the clip. Buddy system." "Does that work?" I asked. "It did," Mara said. "Somebody tripped the breaker at the downtown one. Everyone there stopped at once." I didn't ask follow-up questions. A drone buzzed overhead. For a second I thought help. For a second it felt like civilization was still awake. Then the drone's speaker crackled with that same voice. "Citizens, you can rest now. Please sit. Aid stations are opening. You can stop." The crowd wobbled like a line of dominoes thinking about it. People reached toward curbs. A man sat, sobbing with relief. Mara gripped my elbow so hard, her nails bit through my sleeve. "No," she hissed. "That's not the same voice." It's not," she said. "Listen." I did. The cadence was off by a beat. The vowels were too rounded. It was a good fake, good enough to peel hope like a scab, but it wasn't the same. We watched the man who'd sat. He exhaled, shoulders falling. His eyes went red, like a curtain being drawn. Black tears welled. He started to laugh. We moved. Hour 9. We passed a banner stretched across 12th, Kinetic Aid. Under it, people in bike helmets jogged in place to hand out gear: rollerblades, scooters, skateboards, trekking poles, rope, elastic bands. A chalk diagram explained how to tie someone's wrist to your belt so they'd keep moving even if they passed out. A kid with a whistle trotted beside a line of moms pushing shopping carts like a parade. Someone had spray-painted huge arrows on the asphalt to mark the flow, like a lazy river for the damned. At another corner, volunteers were chalking a looping route. Block loop, 15 minutes, walkers only, no passing. When we followed it, the block had become a racetrack. Office workers, teenagers, seniors, all in a slow orbit like planets refusing to fall. At a fountain, a woman walked in the shallow water, kicking, scooping. She was crying. She held a goldfish. It stopped moving, she sobbed. What happens if it stops? We don't know, someone told her without breaking stride. Keep it sloshing. I didn't know what to do with that, so I kept my eyes forward and left leg, right leg, left leg, right leg. Drink, Mara said, and jammed a bottle into my hand. Small sips, don't choke. We had the kind of conversation you have after a car crash and before the ambulance. Functional, clipped, everything important, blurred. Where were you when it started? She asked. The park, I said. You? Kitchen, she said. Toast in one hand, phone in the other. It came through the speaker, then through the phone, then through the neighbor's TV. I dropped everything and started walking circles around the island. I watched the butter melt. I never saw butter melt that slow. The drone passed again, lower, spraying a mist. Immediately, people started coughing. The mist smelled like pool water and artificial citrus and something metallic underneath. A hospital trying to hide a morgue. Masks appeared. The kinetic aid folks had them. They tossed us too. We got them on without stopping. Mara's eyes flicked to the sky. They're seeding it. Seeding what? She didn't answer, which felt like an answer. Hour 10. We swung wide to avoid a pileup where a delivery biker had wiped out on wet paint. His thigh had a meat flap open. He hobbled, screaming. People shouted to keep going, that medics were up ahead, that he had to move. But the scream paged that ancient human part of me that wants to kneel beside pain and put a hand on a shoulder and say, "You're okay." That part of me wasn't in charge anymore. Mara caught me glancing. "Don't," she said. "I know. Don't look at what you'd do if you could stop. That's how it gets you." How what gets you? She was quiet a long time. The slap of our shoes and our breath filled the space where an answer should have been. "I don't know," she said finally, "but it's older than the announcement." "How do you figure?" "Because the announcement's a workaround," she said. "Somebody figured out rules that keep us alive. That means somebody watched people die long enough to test what works." I had nothing to say to that. She was right. This was all too fast, too organized, too perfectly terrible to be completely random. Where did the vests come from? The duct tape, the signs, the loops? How did everyone know to set up water at 6-block intervals? How was it that the first thing I did when the voice spoke was obey it? "Where are we going?" I asked. "West," she said. "They've got the roller rink running on generators. You can walk in circles there for hours. The Zamboni's towing kids." Seriously. We made a right and joined a stream of people shuffling up a hill. A line of traffic cones created a narrow lane. Volunteers clapped as if we were marathoners. There, "You got this," and "Keep moving." Cutting through like those banners at the end of 5Ks, where they hand you a banana and a thermal blanket. A woman played a snare drum in time with feet, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, keeping cadence like a war band. "Your elbow okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said. "If I go light, squeeze. If you go light, I yank." "What happens if one of us has to?" "Say red," she said. "Everything else we figure out." We figured out peeing while moving. We figured out eating while moving. We figured out crying while moving. We figured out that if you lift both feet to jump a puddle, technically you're still moving because you're falling. We figured out that if you drop to a crouch and crab walk a curb, you can save your ankles. We figured out that kids on scooters are the new royalty. The crowd parted for them like ambulances. At a cross street, a cop car crept with its cherries flashing. A loudspeaker boomed, "Keep moving, west to the rink. East to the stadium, no stopping on bridges." The cop driving had his seatbelt on, and both hands at 10 and 2, and both eyes sunken like he hadn't blinked in an hour. The other cop jogged beside the car, one hand on the roof. They'd solved it, like a riddle. We followed a sign for rink. The smell hit first. Old ice, old sweat, popcorn. The parking lot was a moving snarl of bodies. Inside, the rink was a slow-motion carousel. They'd removed the benches. The snack bar line curved into a loop that fed itself. Grown adults wore roller skates, wobbling like newborn deer. A guy had rigged his kid's wagon to a belt around his waist. The kid snoozed with his little mouth open while Dad trudged, tears making tracks through dust on his face. We merged with the rink stream. The smooth floor was a blessing. 2 hours, a woman in a ref shirt barked as she trotted alongside us, whistle bobbing. Then, you gotta move to the stadium loop. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. If you feel faint, call red, call red, call red. We got you. Lights flickered. The whole rink groaned like a ship. A generator coughed somewhere. What if the power? I started. Then we keep moving in the dark, Mara said. Right, I said, and we did. Hour 11. I learned how to micro-doze with my body on autopilot. Like those stories about soldiers who learn to nap while marching. Your brain pulls a curtain a quarter of the way and lets your legs handle it. Every few seconds, your eyes pop open to reset your path like a Roomba with anxiety. Where'd you learn that? Mara asked, noticing my head dip and jerk. Retail, I said. Holiday season. She almost laughed. The ref blew her whistle 3 short blasts. The crowd murmured. The drone voice cut in through the rink speakers. Citizens, you have done well. You may... The ref blew 1 long blast, drowning it, and screamed, "Do not listen. That channel is compromised." People wavered, but the whistle's physical pain anchored us. The voice cut again, sweeter, softer. "Please, you're safe now. You can..." The generator coughed, and the music surged, a 4-on-the-floor beat that forced our feet to match. Whoever picked the playlist knew exactly what they were doing. My body synced with the bass, and I let it carry me. Mara leaned in, her mouth near my ear. "I used to work phones," she said over the thump, thump, thump. "Emergency notification vendor. We tested voices, real ones, synthetic ones. This isn't random." "What is it then?" "A drill big enough to swallow the world," she said. "Or a leak, or both." "You think the voice saved us," I said, "but it also..." "Yeah," she said. "I think the voice knew what was coming." "Who's the voice?" She didn't answer. Hour 12. We did our 2 hours and shuffled with the herd out a side door and down a painted corridor that dumped us in the parking lot. The ref with the whistle jogged along, guiding streams like an air traffic controller. "Stadium Loop," she called. "Then west across the service bridge. No stopping on the bridge, no stopping on the bridge." We followed the flow toward a narrow service bridge that crossed a dry ravine. Wind hit with a slap. The bridge bounced like a trampoline under the weight of bodies. Someone screamed. The scream rippled panic. Panic is contagious and stillness is a symptom. "Look at me," Mara said, yanking my elbow. "Me, not the gap. Count. 1, I said. 2, she said. 3, I said. 4, she said. We counted to 100 and crossed. On the other side, people wept and kept walking. A guy fell to his knees, sobbing. Strangers grabbed his jacket and dragged him upright, legs like noodles, feet stumbling into a jog. He lived. At the far end of the bridge, a group in lab coats jogged in place behind a folding table loaded with paper cups and something that steamed in the cold air. Their badges read, "Om." The sign said, "Office of Emergency Motion." "That's not real," I said. "Everything's real now," Mara said. A lab coat handed me a cup. The liquid tasted like salty tea brewed with copper pennies. It burned my tongue. "What is this?" I asked, not stopping. "Chelation salts and stimulants," he said, without slowing his jog. "Delays the ocular change, keeps your muscles talking to your brain." "Delays," I repeated. He looked at me like a man who had already watched his family die and still clocked in. "Keep moving," he said, and I did. Hour 13. We moved through a canyon of office towers, the glass reflecting 100 copies of us in a snake, like a time-lapse of our own fear. The mist from earlier had settled into a haze that haloed streetlights. I noticed then that birds weren't perching anymore. They wheeled constantly. Pigeons looked like fighter jets. In the plaza of a bank, a cult had sprung fully formed. The kinetics, white headbands, slogans on their chests. Forward is faith. Motion is mercy. They ran in silent prayer circles. One of them caught my eye and pointed 2 fingers at me, then made a rolling gesture with his wrist like I was late to a dance routine. It should have been ridiculous. Instead, it crawled under my skin. Mara's breathing went ragged. "Red," she whispered. "Okay," I said. We slowed our pace a fraction to keep her moving without tearing something. I took more of her weight. She was light like rope. "Talk to me." "Stitches," she said, "my side." "We need a loop where we can go slower," I said. "Downhill in 3 blocks, someone called behind us. A stranger. A voice. Our herd had conversations now, like an organism that could whisper to itself. Hour 14. We turned onto a boulevard lined with closed shops and moving bodies. We passed a dentist's office where the hygienists were pacing in circles around chairs with patients in them, suction hoses draped, hands moving, feet moving. We passed a barber shop where a guy shaved another guy's head while both of them paced in tiny ellipses, hair drifting behind them like sea grass. Thunder cracked. For a blissful, stupid second, the crowd lifted faces like it was rain, and rain meant something. It didn't rain. The thunder was something else. A helicopter skimming rooftops, heavy as a bad dream. A loudspeaker rolled out. Keep static, moving, stay in loops. Do not static. Bridges. It dropped a crate with a parachute. The crate hit, bounced, burst open. Rollerblades spilled like candy. People grabbed them without stopping, watching a 70-year-old woman lace rollerblades while power walking felt like a hallucination from a cruel god. Mara grabbed a pair for herself, one-handed, and we didn't break stride. You good to hold pace while I put these on? Try me. She looped my belt through her elbow and looped the other end around her wrist as a fail-safe, then bent her knees while walking and somehow got one skate on, then the other, like a magician doing surgery during a sprint. Her face went from clenched to euphoric when the bearings took. Okay, she said, voice breathy and grateful. Okay, don't leave me, I said. Not a chance, she said. and squeezed my arm. Hour 15, we hit the stadium loop. The huge parking lot had become a NASCAR track for humans. Cones marked lanes: walk, jog, skate, bike. A guy on a riding mower crept the inside lane with 6 people hanging on. An ambulance rolled the outer lane with paramedics jogging alongside, tossing gauze and tape and syringes into moving hands like beads at Mardi Gras. A woman with a bullhorn paced the infield. If you feel sleepy, say red. If your vision tunnels, say red. If you think you heard someone you love tell you to sit down, say red. The loudspeaker blared the right voice again, the one from the first hour. I knew it was right the second I heard it, the way you know your own name in a crowded room. Keep moving, it said. Pair up, eyes on your path. There are safe corridors. There are safe loops. Bridges are dangerous. Do not stop on... Static. The voice fell off like a cliff. Who runs that? I asked. Mara shook her head. If I told you, you wouldn't sleep. I'm not sleeping, I said, which was the point. A boy, 12 maybe, ran the wrong way around the loop, eyes glassy. A volunteer blew a whistle and threw herself sideways to corral him without stopping. He screamed and shoved. His eyes weren't red, not yet, but they were headed there. The volunteer walked backward, matching him, hands up, voice soothing and relentless. This way, that's it. Keep those feet moving, buddy. That's it. He lived. That felt like a miracle too small to matter and too big to ignore. Hour 16, dusk bled into night in a way that made me want to stop just to see if that changed anything. It didn't. The city lights came on and turned the loops into neon rivers. The drone mist thickened. The OEM table reappeared with more cups, more salts, more things that tasted like batteries and old pennies. Mara's phone vibrated against my arm. She fished it out without stopping. The screen flashed, Mom. For a second, her face split, hope and terror wearing the same skin. She swiped. She didn't say hello. Keep moving, she said into the phone. Are you moving? Are you with someone? Don't stop talking. Her face changed. Whatever was on the other end didn't answer right. Maybe it didn't answer at all. Her elbow tightened in mine until it hurt, then let go. I'm sorry, she said to the air. I can't stop. She put the phone face down against her thigh, and we kept walking. There are things you don't have to ask if you were raised human. Hour 17. We cut west with a stream that had become our stream. In disasters, your brain builds a tiny town out of the people you've been moving with. A guy with a neon beanie, a girl with a glitter backpack, a woman with a stroller full of bottled water and a cat carrier. They became landmarks. If I lost them, I'd be lost. We reached a slope down to the river. Signs read, "No stopping on embankment." Twice. Then, "No stopping on." 10 times. Then, "No stop." People were trip-walking, butt muscles doing weird contortions to keep balance on slick, mossy concrete. Somewhere down the slope, across the water, something screamed. Not human. Or maybe too human. It sounded like a laugh stapled to a sob. Eyes on the path, Mara said. Right. We made it halfway down when a child's voice said right next to my ear, "Daddy, I don't have a kid." My left foot stuck for a heartbeat on algae. My right knee buckled to catch the weight. For that heartbeat, I stopped. Nothing grabbed me. No hook from a stage. No claw from a sewer. But I felt something take a breath, like a presence had been holding itself, waiting, and my pause was its permission. "Keep moving," Mara snarled, not to me, to the world, and yanked so hard my shoulder socket popped like a knuckle. Pain shrieked. I did what pain told me. I moved. We reached the bottom and joined another loop. I didn't look back to see if anything had leaned up from the dark to smell where I'd hesitated. I knew it had. Knowing and seeing are different species now. Hour 18, we found a convoy, 3 flatbed trucks with their beds full of walkers and rollers, moving at a steady crawl down a service road. People hopped on without fully stopping. Helpers on the beds pulled them up, never letting go, never letting the bodies settle. The trucks went 5 miles an hour. It felt like luxury. We grabbed hands and swung aboard together like we practiced it 1,000 times. In a life where you practice that. People packed shoulder to shoulder, each person swaying in a way that looked choreographed. A woman on the other side made room for us with a little hip wiggle, like we were strangers on a bus before a game. The driver looked back in his mirror, his face ghostly in the cab's glow. He had that taut, wired look of someone who'd been awake since the invention of stairs. He caught my eye and smiled too wide. "You two look like you could use a rest," he said, too kind. "Keep moving," Mara muttered. My guts went cold. The driver's eyes flicked to her. His smile hiccuped, then returned, brighter. "How old are you?" he asked, light as weather talk. I stared at his hands on the wheel. They didn't quite match the wheel's movement. The truck crawled, but his fingers, they were a fraction of a second behind, like the video feed had lagged. "We're good," I said. "Thank you, though. We all have to be useful," he said, and his voice distorted, like a tape too close to a magnet. I clenched my jaw until my molars hurt. The truck shuddered as the road dipped. People swayed but didn't fall. The driver hummed something cheerful, pop, a melody that made my skin try to back away from my bones. I knew that tune. It was something stupid from childhood, a TV theme. He whistled it wrong. We jumped off at the next slow, rolling opportunity. "Red?" I asked. "I'm okay," Mara said. "Just no." "Yeah," I said. "No." Behind us, the truck's bed erupted into a chorus of screams. We didn't turn around. Hour 19, we cut through a mall, automatic doors held open by moving bodies. Inside was a wonderland for people who couldn't stop. Escalators, circular hallways. A carousel someone had turned on. Parents with toddlers walked beside painted horses as they went in permanent circles. The food court had become a buffet line that never ended. People grabbed fries, burgers, pizza, shoving them into mouths without pausing. A guy scooped orange chicken with one hand and tossed it like popcorn while he walked. A barista rollerbladed in circles and handed out coffee in sippy cups. We merged with a stream, going up an escalator and around the second floor and back down the opposite one. A figure 8 loop. It should have been soothing. It wasn't. Movement is mercy until it's your only verb. On the second lap, a scream cut through the mall's fake music. Up ahead, a woman had tripped. She fell in slow motion, arms windmilling, hitting the tile like it had insulted her. I watched her eyes drain white to red, like food coloring weeping through water. She started to laugh through her teeth. A kid, 16, 100 maybe, time wasn't real, reached for her. A man grabbed the kid's sleeve and yanked him forward. The kid sobbed with rage and kept moving. The woman crawled, hands leaving black streaks on the floor that weren't hers. Security guards jogged in place around her, radios crackling. "I hate this," I said. "I know," Mara said. "Hate it, louder, later." Our 20 night deepened. The city hummed like a machine. I imagined the map, pockets of light where loops worked, dark places where they didn't, the whole thing breathing like a lung. The birds had stopped calling. They were still circling. I wondered what happens to the bugs, what happens to the worms, what happens to the things we never look at until they're gone. The voice returned, the right voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere, a simple ribbon of sound. If you are within 40 blocks of a stadium, proceed clockwise. If you are within 20 blocks of a hospital, join controlled corridors. Do not stop. Bridges are still dangerous. If you hear a familiar voice telling you to stop, that is not your loved one. If you hear an unfamiliar voice telling you to stop, that is also not your loved one. A laugh bubbled out of me, half hysteria, half relief. Someone ahead snorted. Someone behind said, "No shit." "Whoever that is," Mara said, "I want to buy them a beer, if bars ever open again." "They'll make ones you can walk through," she said, "shots on tethers." We passed an OEM van idling in a lane with its back doors open. Inside were crates stamped with Kinetic Compliance Unit. A woman in a lab coat jogged in place beside it, handing out ankle straps connected by stretchy bands. "Try these," she panted. "Resistance helps you not overstride." I took one. It felt like a piece of gym equipment. It felt like we were new soldiers in a war invented this morning. "Does OEM stand for Office of Emergency Motion?" I asked. The woman's eyes flicked to my face. She looked 30, but had the eyes of a grandmother. "Today it does," she said. Hour 21. Exhaustion turned my brain into a kaleidoscope. Colors cut harder. Sounds had edges. The drone's mist made halos around headlights. The smell of hot garbage and rainless thunder and human bodies made stew in the back of my throat. I ate pretzels with a moving mouth and tasted salt like a vision. We passed a church where the congregation walked the aisles in a slow loop, the priest pacing the altar with a chalice, murmuring, keep moving, like it was Latin. We passed a hospital where nurses pushed IV poles like strollers and doctors jogged beside gurneys that looked like parade floats. We passed a prison where inmates circled the yard, guards circling the catwalks above like sharks. We passed a house party where a DJ had set up speakers on the porch and the neighbors had turned the block into a conga line. People laughed that manic laugh of the just barely okay. Someone cried so hard they hiccuped. Someone kissed someone else without stopping. Their feet kept time while their mouths tried. At one corner, a projector sprayed a movie onto a wall, Buster Keaton running in circles, then Chaplin, then Gene Kelly singing in the rain. The crowd booed reflexively, then cheered anyway. We were starved for stories. That one felt like a taunt. "Red," Mara said too softly. I tightened my grip. "I've got you." "It's not my legs," she said. "It's my head." "Talk," I said. She did. She told me about her mother, about the phone call that wasn't a phone call. She told me about a camping trip when she was 9 where she woke up to a cougar 5 feet away and learned that terror can feel exactly like awe. She told me she'd wanted to be a teacher, then a pilot, then a firefighter, then nothing at all, because becoming a person had felt like a treadmill already. "Look at us now," she said, and laughed and didn't stop. Hour 22. At the river again. The service bridge quivered with a new traffic. This time, bikes set up like pedicabs pulling little platforms for babies and cats and little old men who shuffled on their mini stages while their grandchildren pedaled. The ingenuity was obscene. We joined another loop. The loop flowed into a tunnel under the freeway. In tunnels, voices echo wrong. Someone sang to keep the rhythm. Heads turned. The song was old and dumb and perfect. We sang. It was the first thing all day that felt like our choice. Halfway through the tunnel, lights died. Darkness slammed like a door. Feet faltered. Count, someone yelled. And we did. 100 throats, 1,000 feet, counting together like a charm. The darkness passed like a cloud. The lights returned. We came out the other side, and it felt like living again. Hour 23. We skirted an evacuation zone. No entry signs. The loop detoured around a block where the mist pooled and glowed faintly. Volunteers in hazmat suits jogged with us, their faceplates ghosting reflections. One of them's radio crackled with words that sounded illegal to hear. I heard release and vector and contain. I heard secondary. I heard threshold. You worked in notifications, I said. Is this how it starts? A test that got out of its box? She looked at the mist. Or a box they opened on purpose, she said. Why? To see who keeps moving. A kid beside us said, My mom says God's testing us. He said it like he wanted me to argue. I didn't. Hour 24, the city's heartbeat slowed. People were learning to move in their sleep. The loops were smoother. The screaming had faded to a background radiation that spiked here and there, like solar flares. The red eyes still happened. The black tears still happened. But the ratio shifted. More saves, fewer falls. A guy wheeled a whiteboard down the street and updated numbers in Sharpie. Hour 1, 27% loss. Hour 6, 13% loss. Hour 12, 7% loss. Hour 18, 4% loss. Hour 24, 3% loss. Good, Mara breathed. Good. We turned into a warehouse that had been converted into a moving dormitory. Hammocks hung low enough that a body could shuffle beneath and a body could shuffle above, and no one stopped. A sign said, Sleep shift, 20 min, 40 min, wake, repeat. No dreams. A guy with a headlamp jogged the aisles with a clipboard. He looked like a waiter in hell. Let me walk for a while, I told Mara. You'd draft off me. She didn't argue. I gave her my belt, and she clipped it around my waist and looped it to her wrist. I set a pace. She matched it. For 10 minutes, I pretended I was something strong. We skipped the hammocks. I didn't trust myself to get in one without stopping. Hour 25. We hit an overpass and were funneled into a glowing box of strobe lights. The sign outside said, Rest Zone. In big black letters, people inside were moving, kind of. The strobes made it hard to tell. A man in scrubs waved us in. It's safe, he said. The strobes trick your motion senses. You can stand for a minute and your brain thinks you're walking. Mara's eyes brightened. Mine didn't. The people inside looked wrong, too smooth, too calm. I couldn't tell if their chests moved. I couldn't tell if their eyes were red or just reflecting light. 30 seconds, the man said. Just breathe. It's safe, Mara said, like she was convincing herself. 30 seconds would... No, I said, and didn't know why I was so sure. My stomach had voted first. Not in there. The man's smile didn't falter. He reached for my wrist without breaking his little in-place jog like we were old friends. Mara tugged me away before his fingers got close. "Thanks," she said to him, voice bright and fake, the way people talk to bank tellers while their car is illegally parked. "We're good." He nodded, smiled, waved, and his teeth looked like a billboard. We kept moving. "Trust your gut like that every time," Mara said, "even if it's wrong. Especially then." Hour 26. We found a high school track. Coaches jogged the inside lane with stopwatches that told lies. The scoreboard said, "Home, 0, guest, 0," and everyone clapped anyway. A kid ran with his dad, tiny legs pumping like a cartoon. The dad sobbed openly and didn't wipe his face. It turned out you could cry while running for a whole day. Who knew? I realized at some point that the voices trying to trick us, familiar or not, had gotten smarter. They used names now. They used smells. I caught a whiff of my childhood kitchen, dish soap and tomato sauce and lemon, a recipe that shouldn't exist here, and my knees almost buckled. I said red just in time. "Hey," Mara said, bumping my shoulder. "Hey, here, now." "I know. I'm not letting you stop." "I know," I said again, and meant I loved her for it. Not love. The love you feel for anyone who stands between you and the abyss with their elbows locked and their jaws set. Hour 27. Back downtown, the loops braided and unbraided like hair. Someone in a balcony above tossed confetti that looked like ash. It rained down and stuck to sweat. It didn't slow anyone. A boy in a Batman cape ran past us, cape flapping. His mom trotted with him, face gray. "One more block," she lied like a hero. "One more," he said back. And they believed each other. We crossed an alley mouth, and I saw a familiar rip of a smile in the dark. The 16-year-old from earlier stood there, head cocked, black tears making necklaces down his chest. He looked at me the way cats look at birds. He opened his mouth, and my father's voice walked out. "Son," it said, warm and tired. My stomach plunged like an elevator cut free. Mara slammed her hip into mine. "Eyes," she said, and I dragged mine forward like they were stuck with honey. We walked. We did not stop. The boy's laugh chased us like a tune you can't shake. Hour 28. A city worker jogged past us with a can of red paint and sprayed a rectangle around a pothole like he was consecrating it. Another worker followed, laying down a sheet of plywood while walking, like a magician setting a table while the table was already being used. We stepped on their work. It held. "People are good," I said, surprising myself because I believed it for a minute. "Most of the time," Mara said, "and then you get a truck driver with the wrong smile." "You saw him too," I said. "Everyone saw their version," she said. "That's the worst part." "Worst? Okay, not the worst," she said, and we didn't laugh. Hour 29. We passed a city bus looping a square block at 2 miles an hour. Inside, the driver cried openly and never looked away from the road. The bus was full of people in poker faces. They walked the aisle back and forth, and the floor of the bus had been marked with painter's tape into a little figure 8 that kept their bodies honest. A woman banged on the door, and the driver shook his head. He couldn't stop. He couldn't even slow down. She kept moving anyway. We joined a loop that fed into the stadium again. A big screen had a message: "Do not stop. Repeat, repeat, repeat." It was stupid. It helped. I felt the shift before I saw it, a ripple through the crowd, like wind through wheat. People murmured, faces lifted. The drone in the sky did a lazy figure 8 and turned its camera eye to us like it was curious whether we'd learned our lesson. The right voice came back one more time. "Sunrise in 2 hours," it said. "Lots of you made it, lots of you didn't. Keep moving. If you're near a rink, stadium, or mall, you're doing fine. If you're alone, find a loop. Do not stop for any reason. If you..." Static, silence. Then another voice faded in, so soft you could mistake it for memory. "Hey, honey," it said. And it was Mara's voice, except it came from the speakers. And it came from behind us, and it came from inside my head. "You can stop now." Mara flinched beside me. "That's not me," she said through her teeth. I knew. I didn't know. The part of me that knew was barely bigger than a coin, and the rest of me wanted to put my hands on my knees and rest my skull on the cool concrete and cry like a child. We walked through it. Our feet knew which side they were on. Ahead, a new sign blinked to life on the stadium's ribbon board, programmed by someone who had slept less than anyone and still remembered how to be funny. If you stop, you die. If you keep moving, you might live. Congrats on making the harder choice. Hour 30. We didn't make 30 hours, not yet. We hit 29 and some change, and then the rink was in sight again, and the lights flickered like a wink. And the air changed, cooler, charged. The Zamboni hummed like a friendly cow. I never thought the sound of a Zamboni could make me want to pray. A woman in a ref shirt waved us in with her whistle between her teeth. 2 laps, she called. 2 laps, and then her whistle fell out of her mouth. She didn't bend to pick it up. She didn't stop moving, but her eyes went strange, unfocused, like a radio between stations. She lifted a hand and pointed at us like she was counting. 2 laps, she said again, but it wasn't a command anymore. It was a promise. We stepped onto the smooth floor. The music hit, a disco beat engineered in a lab to keep bodies upright. My legs shook with the memory of couches. My brain tried to sell me chairs. My soul offered bargains. We kept moving. Halfway through the first lap, the mist thickened. My throat burned cold. The air tasted like lemon and pennies again. "Masks," Mara said. We got them on. We kept moving. The mist pressed anyways. Halfway through the second lap, the speakers clicked. Every head lifted. The right voice wrapped the rink like a blanket. "You've done enough," it said, and those words were the most dangerous ones I'd heard all day. It's okay to rest. You can stop. All around us, bodies wavered. Knees buckled. People looked at each other the way people in old movies look at the ocean after the storm breaks, like they forgot they didn't know how to swim. Mara's grip tightened and tightened and tightened until my fingers hurt. "That's not it," she said. "That's not it. That's not it." "How can you tell?" I asked, and I meant it, like a child asking how you know the stove is hot when it isn't glowing. She stared at me with eyes so alive it hurt, because we're not done. The speakers crackled louder. The voice grew warmer. My knees begged. My heels ached. The floor felt like a bed, and from somewhere under the rink, through the concrete, through my shoes, through the tired bones of the city, something else answered the voice. It wasn't a word. It was a sound like a cliff face clearing its throat. The lights went out. Hands grabbed my shoulders from behind, hard, urgent, and a mouth brushed my ear with breath that smelled like copper and ice. "Don't turn around," it whispered, in a voice I knew down to the marrow. "If you look at me, you'll stop." I took a step, then another, and another. Want to keep going? Because the thing behind me just said my full name, and it knows a lullaby my mother only ever sang once.